Okay.
Very good morning to all of you congregants and friends for the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist Church. This is August 15th, the first service back to how we've been doing things over the past year or so of having remote services and post-discussion follow-up on Sunday mornings. We're doing this because of the rise in the Delta variant and the rise in local cases here in Douglas County. So just in the interest of keeping everybody safe, we have with us the wonderful and always exciting to hear from Michelle Avante. So thank you very much, Michelle.
I'm grateful I'm on.
The service was, and this is on me, was put together in kind of a rushed fashion this week because of the switch back to online. And in my haste, I left out the closing words, which were very apt for the service and what we're currently going through. So if it pleases the group, I would like to share that now, and then we can begin our discussion.
Got it. Gotta look terrible.
Our closing words for today are by Laura Thompson, entitled Across the Distance. Across the distance, the light from within me shines, sending love to all. And across the distance, your light is fuel that warms me and others, and helps to keep my own light burning. Together, we keep the flame of community burning bright. And with that thought in mind, we encourage you to call each other. The chalice is extinguished with some words by Maddie Cervantes entitled, We Keep Its Light in Our Hearts. We extinguish this chalice, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and compassion, taking it outside to the world we live in until we can be together again.
Great, sweetie.
Okay, so yes, I think the service would have benefited greatly from having that ending the service, but we have it now. So
maybe you can add it at a time of your leisure.
All right, so Michelle, who wants to go first?
I hope that that sermon did provoke a whole lot of thoughts, because it should have.
Well, it did. It certainly did for me. I always run the risk of dominating the conversation. So yeah. So why break tradition? JC has a has a thought.
I'm almost speechless because you explained something to me that I felt and railed against, that whole addiction formation thing. I'm going, oh, it was real.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then just the whole idea that I decided, I think, Michelle, that I have to work with you. I mean, my 85-year-old brain needs some real remodeling. And I'm so open to it because it has made me so angry, and it has brought up such fear that it's like your sermon just walked all over me. And I just need to listen to it again and again until I have no more resistance. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You know, spiritual beings drove me to do this sermon. And as Laleen knows, it started a long time ago. I think it's been at least 3 months. And it was very challenging for me because I feel like there's so much to say that I feel like I had to take the whole universe and squeeze it down to the head of the 22-minute pin. And I think at least I got to the point where hopefully you've got a pathway to.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, great. Yeah, go ahead, Lucy.
Michelle, I just have to say you're looking stunning today. You're reminding me of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, thank you. That's probably the nicest compliment anyone's ever given me.
Your pearls,
The
your
pearls.
pearls remind me of her little lace collars that she used to wear. And ironically, look, and I did my hair too. This is my first time I've had enough hair to put in a ponytail. I don't look stunning. I'm totally aware of that. I look like I've been rode hard and put away wet.
Oh,
I feel
Oh, Lucy, I'm so glad to just see your face.
that's true.
love you.
Love you too.
Yep, go for it, Glennis.
Well, now that brings up the question, and I agree with you 100% through the whole. Through the whole sermon. It was yes, yes, yes. That's it. That's it. You put your finger on it. But the question is, right now, when we are meeting together on Zoom a lot and doing everything that is spiritually gratifying as in terms of our church and our discussions is done electronically, and we have to, or it's not going to happen. I mean, I was around in the 50s, and I remember how this would have actually completely isolated us. Just your thoughts.
That's an interesting way to look at it. You know, we don't have a real choice in that isolation, but the isolation has another gift. You know, and wherever you are in time, wherever you are in situations, you have to ask the question, what is the gift hidden here? Because there's gifts in everything.
Yeah.
In our isolation, we come to really value each other more than we did before. Things that we took for granted, we start to say, wait, you know, that's more important than having an ice cream cone or taking a trip to Germany. You know, what's really more important than giving a hug to somebody you really love and being face to face with somebody you really care about and being in an environment where you're sharing ideas with people that you have like-minded ideas and each one provokes a new idea. You know, that stimulation for us expands the way that we see the world and the way we see ourselves. So where we miss it because it's not interfacing, we have this gift of Zoom, which is wonderful. We have the gift of a phone and cell phones with FaceTime and whatever else is on there. So we have to look at what's good. And at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, you know, why? Why are we doing this? You know, it's giving the planet an opportunity to make change. When we step away from all the things that we do out there, we give the planet more opportunity to do more of what it does, to breathe. We also give ourselves an opportunity to spend more time meditating or opening that door. And when I say meditating, I'm careful how I use that word. I don't mean sitting down in your chair and doing an om. I'm talking about the fact that when we step around our house or in our yard, we are doing a walking or an acting meditation if we allow our mind to focus on something that is beautiful, something that is balanced, you know. And for me, it can be just as simple as washing a pot. I love seeing a pot become shiny. It's all because of those Brillo commercials when I was a child. Nonetheless, you know, that's a gift that we have. So you have to think about that. Every time we are doing some kind of walking meditation, we're helping the earth, we're helping each other. You know, and if you take the time to watch some memes because you're totally bored, and you don't want to watch television and the news is too much to bear. So, you know, you go watch Simon the Cat. You're helping the whole world when you watch Simon the Cat because you're laughing. And every time we laugh, those vibrations go out to the world and lift everyone. So you may think, oh my God, I'm doing nothing. Oh, why am I doing all of this? The truth of the matter is you are doing something that you didn't realize you were doing. And we need to start understanding that instead of thinking that, you know, we're just out here moping around because we can't go out and play. You know what? You can. You are. You also have the ability to focus more on what is my inner world. You know, when you're so busy running around picking up groceries and doing chores and doing all the things that we tend to do, you don't have time to realize that there's a whole inner world going on. You don't focus on it. You're focused out here. And the linear mind can only handle so much focus. You know, to balance the inner worlds with the outer worlds is a true walking of the tightrope. And that's what we all do as we walk this journey of mastery. You know,
So while we can eschew the being addicted to it and always having to look at it and so forth, for using the technology, for example, like this, for the good, so that would be the tightrope we're walking on.
yeah, that's part of it, definitely. You have to know when to put it down and when to come back into balance with the earth. And you know, that sound that I just made, Om, that's the sound of the earth. You can use it anywhere. It helps you come back into the balance or vibration of the planet itself. You know, your whole body is made up of material of the planet. The only part that is not of the planet is your consciousness. That spiritual part of yourself is the only part that's not actually belonging to the planet. And my eyeglasses, but you know. But nonetheless, you know, we need to bring those trillions of cells back into alignment. They go jaggedly out of alignment as we do electronic stuff. You know, and if you carry a phone on your body, on your person, you just activate that. Those cells are responding to that activity. You know, and even if you shut everything down, unless you live somewhere in the middle of the forest, you're getting waves that are coming right through your home. They're constantly being moved, you know, all the debate about 5G, you know, who knows, but it's more powerful than the last one, so it's coming through your home. You know, so you think about all of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, one part of your talk that was very interesting to me is, you know, the interest in conspiracy theories and conspiratorial thinking. I used to teach a critical reading class to high school students, and their favorite section was always the section when we went over conspiracy theories. And I guess I'd be curious to know what is your definition of conspiracy theory?
I've never thought about it, but I'll give you what I think now.
Okay.
So I don't know what the actual definition of conspiracy theory is, but it seems to me, from what I've seen over my lifetime, is that we create something that is based in fear, and we speak it to someone else, just like the guy running down the street saying the sky is falling. And a lot of people start following him and saying, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And we all saying it. And a few people are saying, wait a minute, stop. I'm looking at the sky. It doesn't appear to be falling. But that, I think that's how conspiracy theory starts. Someone activates the fear, and it could be through anything. I mean, some of them are so ridiculous. I mean, the thought that someone could actually get a fear such as Hillary Clinton is running a child pornography or a child trafficking thing through a pizza parlor. What level of intelligence allows you to believe that that could have any grain of truth in it? It's so absurd. If anyone had any form of logic, would they run a child trafficking thing through a pizzeria? Kind of odd to me. But somebody said it, and somebody believed it, and somebody moved it on. And as a result of that, we have conspiracy theory. It's a whole group of people coming into agreement about a fear that may be completely and utterly non-existent. And it's kind of like the telephone thing we used to do when we were kids.
Right.
Gonna say that. Yeah.
I think that's I see you, Laleen. I think that's a very good definition. I would only add to it that what defines, oh dear.
All okay?
What,
My tablet went for a little jump there.
That's okay, as long as all is well. What defines a conspiracy theory more than anything for me is it sets a complicated problem to a simple solution. So for instance, one of the conspiracy theorists that we would always talk about in the high school class is the anti-Semitic notion of the Jewish question, right? Is that how in the world is it that Jewish people are so overrepresented in successful industries, throughout the world relative to their population size? Now notice that there is no Nigerian question amongst conspiracy theorists, right? Whereas, Nigerian immigrants, proportional to their size, do better than anyone, right? Yeah, and so the idea is that, if one group or one person is the problem, then all we have to do is get rid of that one person or that one group, and then everything, utopia would ensue.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you look at like the Bilderberg group, the Illuminati, any of these very popular conspiracy theories, at the base of it, what it says is that all of the problems of the world can be heaped on the shoulders of this very small cabal of people. And if we could just solve that problem, all would be well. Yeah. And the world is more complicated than that, unfortunately or fortunately.
Factual, yeah.
Yeah.
To be true.
Yeah. Let's have Laleen, and then if anybody wants to respond to what I said, then that'd be cool.
For me, Michelle, I really liked the way you put it together, and I think those of us of elder years probably found the sequencing that you went through to be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
I remember the first TVs way back in the 40s, and yes, we could count on truth. Truth was spoken and based on fact in our news coverage.
Yeah.
And when you talked about the psychology of stimulus, I remember in my earliest, must have been 17, 18 years old psychology classes, they talked about sales, and they talked about how, and used TV then as an example, because TV was really, really new in the 50s, about how you would stimulate interest in an excitement in a product. And that was what was necessary in order to convince someone to buy it. And it was moving into the arena in our ethics discussions, ethics class, of not having to be true, but having to be believable. So if one could convince another that this product in a most believable way was the best thing to help them with whatever, then one was likely to get the greatest sales. And then when you talked about fear in that same context, it made it even more fully understandable for me, because so often products are sold to alleviate the worry or the fear that people have about, am I feeding my kid the best nutrition? Well, this helps Mickey Mouse. And I mean, no matter what the product, am I getting the best night's sleep? I mean, do I need a new mattress? It's going to cost me $2,000. I mean, it's still, it goes on today. So it was easy for me to see the logical progression that when you got into Roger Ailes and his purchase of Fox, how that was able to just elevate and take all of that and put it into the news and make it more interesting, more stimulating, more.
Yeah.
And then I have to remember that even though it's not a real easy subject for a lot of us to talk about, but that's intelligence. And intelligence goes like this, we got a whole bunch of people in here and a bunch of people here that don't understand a thing and a bunch of people here that comprehend a great deal more. And Fox News and that type of advertising is not geared to the group of people that they've most tried to make the most fearful, which are the intellectuals.
Mhm.
The intellectual media, the intelligentsia, whatever it is that we are supposed to be, who are educated and now trying to run the country and don't care anything about your laws. We only want to take control. So I want to say I haven't put all that together, but when you were talking about it, I realized I lived that. Yes, I remember Wheaties. Yes, I remember my mom saying, "No, we're not buying that. It isn't good for you." But Mom, it's a toy. So it was a very, very enlightening way of having something explained that has created a great deal of anger for me currently when I listen to some of the conspiracy theories that a news program or supposedly newscasters, I don't know where that word even fits in, spiel out of their mouth, not just hour after hour, but day after day and week after week. And it's frightening. And I like what you're starting to put out as solutions. And I would add to that, and then I'm going to be quiet. I would add to that I think we all need to get into various forms of social media and start putting out counter messages. And we don't have to sell products to do it. We just have to tell truth. Short, simple truth.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Part of the story, of course, that I didn't go into because I only had so much time. But Roger Ailes didn't just overnight become who he became. He has a very long story and a very involved story, but his lack of moral conscience is key. And what I one of the things I would love for people to remember is where one person's lack of moral conscience can take and control a huge segment of our population with ideas, there is still another person somewhere who has a moral compass, who has the ability to offer guidance and lift up another segment of the population. He specifically went after people in his age group who he knew were not highly educated and who he knew could be riveted by fear, as he was riveted by fear. He was a man who had hemophilia as a child and didn't know if he was going to live, and then he got hit by a car and he still didn't know if he was going to live, and he managed, but his fears were palpable. And he found his intelligence, he ended up using his intelligence much like Lex Luthor in the Superman comics. I mean, he was not a stupid man, and he used his intelligence to do what he's done, which is divide this nation. However, we could say, oh, that's horrible, that's just awful, but that isn't what we should be saying. Instead, we need to say, so what was this soul's purpose in doing this? Why did this soul come at this time to create a division in this nation? Because it's a period in time where we are at transformation that is so extensive that we absolutely have to examine where we are responsibly thinking and how do we help each other find truth. And if we look at the US chart, this activation of Pluto, we are in what we call a Pluto return. And for those of you who don't know what Pluto is as a planet, in terms of its influence or resonance to human structure, Pluto is the transformer. Pluto brings up everything that's hidden to the surface. It burns everything up, and then it lets you start like the forest from nice ground, all cleaned up. Let's build. That's what Pluto does. And in the US chart, we are experiencing a Pluto return. And that is why the majority of nations never, ever make it past 200 and so many years, because they never get to that Pluto return. It is challenging. However, the United States of America is a very special nation. It is the first nation on this planet that was completely open to integrating. And that is unique. It is no longer unique, but it was at the time. And as a result of that conception, of that idea, Pluto in our third house, which is the house of our thoughts and our communication, continues to transform the way that we see the world and the way we see each other. And at this moment in time, Pluto is empowering us to transform fully. We have basically till the end of October of 2024 to get this right, and we will. And at that point in time, we'll start to see the seeds that we've laid forward to plant for the new growth. So, it's a huge step we're taking. We can't, there's no way you can minimize it. To try to put it into a little piece of a program that's why we're feeling the depth of feelings we have now. You feel chaos. You look outside, fire. You look on your box, and it looks like an autocracy that's taking place. It's like anywhere you turn out into the world, you go, is it okay? and you can't just run over and visit your family and say, oh, let's all hug and say a prayer together. We have to do it zooming. We have to zoom, and that's probably a great word, because we are zooming into the future. Just the key is to find balance. Mm-hmm. That is the real key.
Can we count on Pluto imploding both Roger Sales and Trump?
Well, Ailes is gone, and now it's Rupert Murdoch, and of course he has children, and I think some of his children are looking to transform things and change the way things are done. The same thing is going on in Cuba. The children there of that dictatorship, they are interested in transforming things. Mm-hmm. They are not interested in seeing people kill people because they're homophobic. It's ridiculous. So the world is going to change. We just have to wait a little bit longer for this shift to fully take place. And as far as Donald Trump, his chart is imploding, and we'll see what happens in December. There's a major hit to his chart in December that may put him in prison or come very close. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I know it's very hard not to wish for these things to just manifest, but we have to stay balanced, and our job is to bring harmony, peace, and love to the planet. Our job is to align ourselves with the creation that we have manifested, because this is our universe. Every single one of us is soul, and it is us together that have manifested this universe, and a whole lot more that you don't see, obviously.
Yeah. I know. I see Kim just ready to erupt. But before we do that, and for the record, I quite like Fox News. But I think it's funny when we're talking about manipulation, and I think that audience manipulation is something that is worth considering. And one of Roger Ailes' great contributions to audience manipulation. Now, what could all of these images have in common?
Exploitation of women, for starters.
Yeah.
You love the clothes, love the way they're
Good
sitting,
legs.
love who they will attract. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They all look like Barbie dolls.
Mhm. Yeah. And I don't know if this is true, but it was said that Roger Ailes would watch Fox News with the sound off, just to make sure that the lovely ladies, and they are, were engaging to the primarily, middle-aged male audience. So that manipulation, we cannot deny it. We cannot say that it's not there. Kim, you want to jump in?
Where do I jump in? My goodness. First off, when Fox News came about in 1996, it was back in the time where I'm like watching news and I'm disagreeing with it. I'm thinking, what the heck? And my late husband was saying, well, it's more Democratic news than it is Republican news. They're not saying the news. They're slanting it to the left more than they are to the right. I go, oh, is that what it is? And then Fox News came about and was like on Republican issues, which I agree with. And so I don't see why you're saying that Fox News came out and to make people fear anything, because there's two sides to the story. And when you're having a side that you believe in, and then you hear someone else's opinion on it, you go, oh, they're fearing, or they're something else because you don't agree with it. We have a right to our own opinions, and we have a right to be disagreeing on it. I don't have a problem with people having their own opinions like you guys do. But when you start saying that my opinion, I'm stupid because I have that opinion, I'm dumb, I'm not educated because I have that opinion, I'm making the decisions on fear, that angers me, because you're telling me that my opinion is stupid. And I'm not stupid. I've been to college. I teach kids. I teach kids really well. Yeah, I play the piano. It takes a lot of work and knowledge to play the piano. So you kind of slapping me in the face when you're saying that because I don't agree with your opinion, that I'm fearful. I don't fear anything. I don't even fear the stupid virus coming on, because we're gonna get it. Okay, we're gonna deal with it. It's dealt with it. You just go along with life, dealing with what you have. If you keep fearing it, how's that gonna live? How you living when you're in fear all the time? So I don't know if I said it enough, and I have a lot of other stuff to say, but you were saying a lot of stuff, and I'm over here.
Well, I welcome your opinion. What I was giving you in terms of Roger Ailes is what his opinion was, not mine. If you read his story in his biography.
Well, hang on.
On your sermon, you were saying Fox News came about over fear, and I'm like,
that's right.
There's nothing to fear.
Wait.
Kim, what you're doing is you're telling me what you're seeing, and you're telling me what you're experiencing with Fox News, and I am not debating that. What I'm telling you when I was talking in this sermon, and I'm really welcoming this because I expected some of this to come through, is that I was telling you the story of Roger Ailes, and that is the way he set things up. That was the directive he set in motion. You can read his biography. You can read his life story. You can read people who work for him, and they will tell you exactly what he set up and what he was doing. That is what I was telling you. I was not telling you that anything and everything on Fox News is wrong. That would be ridiculous of me to say. And I'm not telling you that every person who watches Fox News is stupid. I would never say anything like that in my world. That is what Roger Ailes actually said. He said, that's what he said he was going after when he created Fox News the way he created it. That doesn't mean that everyone who watches that. And it doesn't mean that everyone who's on it is telling you an untruth. I'm sorry if that's what you came to believe I was saying. I do my best to stay out of the picture. I'm just giving you the facts as I can find them. And that's what the facts are.
Well, let's, Lillian, I see your hand. Can we acknowledge that in our group, which is, it tends to be, you know, in terms of educational achievement, pretty high, that there is a sense that if only people were educated, they would think like us?
No, we cannot agree with that because I don't believe that.
Okay.
Okay. And I think it's really important that in our conversations with each other, at least within our own church community, you know, we work very hard not to point a finger at an individual when we have discussions. And Kim, I welcome you. And I also want you to hear that you're not being a part of our church community does not mean that we point a finger at you. So if I'm saying something like there's an intelligence curve and there are folks here and folks here and folks here, and I say that Fox News has taken this group identified as the more intellectual, the college, you know, as the group to be feared, the group not to be trusted, the Democrats. I'm not saying to you that there's nobody on Fox News who's intelligent and belonging in this group. What I'm saying to you is, for me, it's really important that I understand, and I hope that people elsewhere in the world understand the difference between democracy, democratic, Democrats, Republicans.
Yep.
Because so much has been fucked up, and that's a word I shouldn't use. But when we start combining anything that's being done out there in the political world that is democratic, referred to as democracy, the democratic process, etc., all of a sudden, that's the Democrats. And it's not. Our democracy is everyone.
That's right.
Yeah. So Martha's
two parties, but we have two major ones.
Martha's been trying to get in, so yeah.
It boils down to critical thinking. Where do you get your information? What are your sources? There have been snake oil salesmen and grifters since the beginning of time. And it takes one person to be responsible to seek out the information that they share. And it boils down to that. You can choose to believe it or not. That's not the point. But if you are going to pass on information that has been passed down along, like Michelle said, a telephone, without basing it on fact or a source that is fairly reasonable, then that's not good for all of society. And what's happening, critical thinking skills are being pushed out of our schools by certain religious groups because it doesn't fit in the box that they're in. That's their issue. That's fine. They can do whatever they want, whomever. But our public schools have a duty to teach children to think critically, which comes along with reading all sorts of stuff.
And being a citizen.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That's my only point I want to throw in here, because it all boils down to critical thinking. And then you can make up your mind who you are or what you want to believe.
I am the biggest proponent of teaching critical thinking that I know, having taught it for the better part of
Yes,
10 years.
thank you.
But on some levels there are, so for instance, we can make a claim and say like, okay, you've got to know your sources, you've got to fact check and double check and really reason through to make sure that everything that you're saying is true. But on the other hand, we have people in this congregation who believe things that are completely unverifiable. Past lives are unverifiable. Astrology, is unverifiable. Tarot cards, unverifiable, right? So all of us have a degree of faith in how we go about our daily lives. I think that a lot of the responses was directed at Kim, so I want to make sure that, Kim, you get a chance to respond to anything that's been said.
Not right now, maybe later.
Okay.
I got more to say. But,
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
But on the
Check with
education
somebody
front,
that can feed you the information.
but on the education front, I am really concerned with what we're teaching our children right now. Because they're trying to teach children race theories, and I don't think children should be taught that, because children don't understand any of that.
Right. Okay. Well, and that's a different conversation, which we might be able to get into, but I want to make sure that we're staying on topic. Okay. Yeah. Go for it, JC.
I just have been thinking of, as people are talking, about how I feel about commercials and what commercials make me feel. This is a household that tapes over the commercials. Everything we watch has been taped so we can move through the commercials without listening.
Right.
But sometimes the story in the commercial is lovely if you don't listen to the words. The people in them are being kind to one another. They're being helpful. They're beautiful. And so, but if you don't have the words to find out what it is they're selling or what idea they're selling. So I really believe what you're saying, Michelle, about how commercials are used to affect how I feel. Because when I don't know what the heck they're trying to sell me, I just want to get right in that story and be part of that game. And I just want to be where they are. So I get how perversive that is. So it's like, you have to, thank you again for a clarity of thinking that I was willing to give up, actually, in order to enjoy the pictures.
Whenever the Subaru commercials come on with the dogs,
Oh yeah, I
I
always
make
watch.
sure that we do not fast forward during those commercials.
Yes,
I love the
absolutely.
dog commercials with Subaru.
They're great.
Yeah, those are goodwill commercials because
Yeah.
everyone knows the name Subaru. So yeah.
Well, their thing is share the love. So, whatever.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's called goodwill advertising. So yeah.
Glenn?
I used to own a marketing firm, so I'm really familiar with marketing.
Yeah.
I did advertising and marketing for many, many years. So
Yeah. Glenn has had her hand up.
Well, in some of the earlier television commercials, we didn't get a TV until about 1960, maybe a little earlier. And they had an ad for PF Flyers. Now, I was not known to be a very fast runner at all as a kid. I was actually had all my strength up here. So I wanted some PF Flyers. They make you run faster and jump higher. And I was absolutely had to have them, begged my parents for them, never got them. But one day I was sitting with my grandmother and she said, well, just because they draw a picture of a wedge and a heel doesn't mean that you're going to run faster with it, or jump higher, So it was the beginning of her debunking these ads as they were coming forward. And that was my early critical thinking lesson.
Right.
That's that's really the key right there, the critical thinking. When someone is selling you something, and especially if it's something that you know nothing about, okay, so it's something new, you don't know all the questions to even ask.
Right.
And if it sounds so good and it sounds like it fits your world so well, you want to buy it.
Mhm.
How many diet programs have been sold on that basis?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I think that was Steve Jobs' whole approach to
Yes.
to his businesses. I don't remember exactly the quote, but it went something like, "How do the people even know what to buy before you tell them?" And in trying to see like who would be interested in something like a personal computer. Yes, Joanne.
I think we're talking about critical thinking. So I'm going, in my perspective,
Where are you?
I went to public school. And so I got to go every Saturday to the movies with my girlfriend, Anita. Prior to going to the movies, we had to stop in the vestibule of the Catholic Church to see the Legion of Decency, to see if that movie was approved by the Catholic Church for our teens to Michelle knows this, to go attend. And it came one time where Jane something or other was in a movie that was a little risque. Nothing like we consider risque today. But anyway, I'm Marilyn Monroe, and my girlfriend and I really wanted to go to it. So we put our critical thinking cap on and decided we were old enough to decide for ourselves if we wanted to go or not. We went. So it comes in all phases of when I was immersed in that little Legions of Decency every Saturday until they pulled my chain once too often. So that's my story.
Michelle, oh, yeah, go for it, Kim.
I have a question, kind of. You were talking about our moral compass and how it's not doing very good. I don't remember exactly how you said it. Because I have on here that I think it's kind of broken, and I'm not sure if it's going to ever get fixed again. And I speak on this with children, and where I work is a Head Start. We got a lot of children who are broken because of what their parents have put them through at a young age. And I'm talking the last class I worked in, it was bad. The lead teacher was telling me that these kids come in really angry because of how they lived. And I can't go into detail or anything, but let's just say it's stuff that you would be shocked as an adult to hear about. And imagine you being 3 to 5 year old going through this kind of stuff. And we had to deal with these kids, and we didn't know what to do with them because it was just half the class was doing all this stuff, all because of their upbringing. So that's why I'm so kind of negative about our moral compass, because I'm seeing generation of people not having morals. And so I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
That is such a huge question and a huge statement. That's part of the breaking down of norms. The loss of understanding what's important between us. And I think that's part of why we're experiencing a pandemic, because we have to rediscover what is important. Morality is based on that issue of what is important. Your morals are going to, if you go into a store, you could steal something, put it under your shirt or whatever people do when they steal, to make sure no one's looking, and you walk out. And how do you feel when you go out with something? I know Joanne and I were talking about this the other day. I've been known to have something in my cart that I didn't see, and then I have to go back in the store and pay for it. And that's happened to me a couple of times. It's when we come down to what we feel, children, if your parents are not teaching you the value that other people have, then what happens is only your value is important. And there is a loss of moral compass. A moral compass has to do with us understanding that we are connected to each other. You know, as Christ said, you know, you are important to your brother. You're someone who should be taking care of your brother. And as the Native Americans say, we are each other. We are all one. And in South Africa, they teach that as well. Liambutu means we are all one. So how do we start teaching that to children who are broken? I don't know the answer to that, but it's something that would be very valuable for us maybe to get together as a little group and brainstorm and see what techniques we might find that could work to help children who are not having the influence from their families that will help them find that moral compass. You can grow up in a family where there are several children and only one of them has no moral compass. How does that happen? It's hard to identify because we are so incredibly complex. You know, but I know years ago, I remember working when I was in the military, and my boss came in and I was behind the counter because we used to sell like lapidary tools and things. I ran a craft shop. And I remember him coming in and he says, you know, that money in that cash register, that's not yours. And I looked at him and I thought, well, I know that. Who doesn't know that? And he was actually making a point that people have stolen from that cash register, which tells me there are people who don't have a moral compass around me. How do I help them find it? I don't really have an answer to that. You know, to me, it has to do with the value of other people. Why I would never steal from a store is because someone is working their lifeblood to make that store there and work. And there are people who have jobs in that store and they need those jobs to feed their families. And for me to take anything without paying for it would be injuring these people that I love. They're part of my community. And I would never do that. So someone who has no moral compass is not seeing the connection between humanity. They're not seeing anyone else as equal to them or important to them. I have a brother whose attitude is, well, you know, they're rich enough. That's not a good attitude. That is a lack of a moral compass. It has nothing to do with how rich or how poor anyone is. It has to do with that you are my connection. You are connected to me and we share this universe together. And that's important to me. It really, truly is. Just as you can, we've never been in the same room together, but you're important to me. And what you feel and what you believe and what you see as truth is actually important to me. I may not understand it all the time, but if I don't connect with you and I don't get to hear your voice and see where you're coming from and be open enough to hear that, I am missing part of me because you're part of me. And when we see the world that way, we would never injure anyone else. It's hard to injure someone when you look at them and know they're part of who you are. And we are truly each other, as is everything here. We all share this earth together in these human forms. And I truly do value you. And I can't even imagine how important you are to those children that you're working with. To have someone who has a moral compass and has care for them in their lives when they go home to a home that has nothing to offer them except perhaps.
I try.
I know you
Of course,
try.
It's hard when they're jumping the fence
Oh,
and
yeah.
chasing them.
They can be. Okay. So we have just a sliver of time yet left. We've got JC and Laleen, and then we'll give the final word to Michelle.
Okay, Kim, in answer to your question about these kids who come from families where they're not being taught to love, we found at Phoenix, they can get all the way to high school and still be those kids. And we offered the parents parent classes, and the parents would say no. And we would say this, then we will tell you that we're teaching your kids this, and this about treating other people with love. So don't blame them if they don't fit in your family anymore. They are going to be adults and make their own way, and you need to be aware what we're teaching them. And that didn't make them come. They still didn't want to hear it from us. But the kids learned to turn away.
Right. And Laleen.
I would offer up that probably the best solution is to talk to the kids who have grown up in those situations. Like I would offer up myself, who grew up in a housing project with 500 of the poorest families, no men allowed, and everybody's struggling for everything and no one having enough. And what that does to people and to kids. If you try to talk to the parents of those kids, they're going to feel blamed. They're going to feel a whole bunch of stuff. But when you can talk to the olders who have grown up that way and find out what was my life on a day-to-day basis within my own house, between my house and the neighbor next door, between some people had 10 kids in those houses and there's 500 families. So between the, 2,000 or 3,000 kids that lived in that project, how did we survive? And then you can begin to understand what it is that children don't learn, but could learn when approached in the right manner. Most of them have never been affirmed for anything. Other than I was called a project kid for years. That was how I was labeled. You're poor, it's a label, and with it comes a shitload of stereotypes and attributes.
Wise words. Michelle, the last word is yours.
This subject is really heartbreaking to me, and I have a wish that I've wished ever since I can remember. If I could be able to do one thing, it would be to kiss every child goodnight, every night, everywhere around the world. Because I don't think there's anything greater than giving love to a child. It's like watering a little tree and waiting for it to grow up and fulfill its own promise. And that's what you're doing, Kim, and that's what anyone's doing who works with a child anywhere, whether you write a story for them or you interface with them every day. I think, too, that you will never know how much you've contributed to their lives. One person inspiring a child can change their life forever. My own experience is like this. It's a tiny little sliver of the universe. I wrote a book called Grihi, The Journey of Five. And many years ago, 2007, I think, or 2008, my nephew was working for Teach for America in the poorest area in Phoenix, Arizona, where all the children in his class basically were children from migrant workers. Their parents didn't even speak English. And he managed to get his little third grade class of 28 kids to all pass the state reading test with 100%.
Yes.
I heard
Do it.
that. I was so excited. I got the names of all 28 children. I inscribed a book to each one of them. I put them in a box and sent them overnight to Phoenix so that he could give them to these children who probably had never owned a book of their own. It was heartbreaking to me to think about them and heartwarming to think about them. A year later, that school moved him up with his class. So he was teaching the same group of children in fourth grade because they saw him as so successful with them. And my sister, whose name is also Avanti, went to be his assistant one day. And he introduced his mom as Anne Marie Avanti. And one of the children raised his hand and he said, "Do you know Michelle Avanti?" And my sister said, "Yes, that's my sister." And out of his backpack, he pulled my book.
Wow.
The impact one person can make on a child is incredible.
Yes.
And he wasn't the only one in the room who pulled it out of their backpack when this boy did it.
Wow.
That's mind-blowing. How we influence through our inspiration and our love is impressive. We will never know the extent of it, and it doesn't matter. But that love that you pour out to that child lives in their heart and helps them live a good life. So just keep doing what you're doing and know it's fantastic. And keep asking for guidance because you are limitless and your guidance is a constant. And it'll come to you in whatever way you determine is best for you.
Well,
I love you guys, and I am honored to be a part of your lives. Truly honored.
Thank you.
That was a rather inspiring closing thought. Thank you, Michelle. For everybody else, we are back to the schedule that we've been on for over a year. Thank you so much for joining us for Sunday service, and we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.